How are you? My name's Kirk Coburn, and I'd like to thank the MenzLeague for giving me an opportunity to express some of the vulnerability that I have felt in my life. I think I'm going to talk about a period in my life where I felt probably the most vulnerable, which might be in some ways the most relatable in this situation. So this goes out to a lot of the new dads out there. And quick background on myself, Cole's notes. Beep, boop, boop. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. When we were having kids, we'd already been together for 16 years. We have spent at that time nothing but time on strengthening our relationship. So we had a lot to lean on at that point. We had some positive success in regards to the corporate world, ups and downs, of course, and many different trials. But it was things really changed for me in many ways when I became a dad. First and foremost, I wanted to become a dad. That decision in our family was really pushed by me. I wanted to be able to, have that family aspect. I really appreciated what my dad did for me growing up, and I wanted to be able to experience that as well. My wife at that point could have taken her leaving kids, left kids out of it, and just enjoyed traveling to Mexico a lot more and everything else. But I just want to give some preference on where this comes. So looking at things, we decided to have a kid. Boom. Everything else is going well. Get a house, have a dog, have a kid. What does this mean? Well, this means that in a lot of ways my dream is coming true. On June 26, 2012, kick out our first. And it is an absolute miracle for me. One of the coolest things ever. Everyone says don't watch. It's like watching your best friend get beat up. But for me, it was like that moment when life took off was possibly the best thing I've ever felt in my life. So I'm holding this kid in my arms and making all these promises in my mind about who I'm going to be, how a father I'm going to be, like everything that we kind of hear and see in fairy tales and everything else really kind of rolls into that moment. And within the first few days, I see that's completely full of shit. In other words, that all of that is untrue, or was completely untrue for me. That baby needed mom more than anything else, and really, when I attempted to help out in that moment, it was complete failure. The kid didn't want to be with me. I couldn't feed it. Changing it was an issue. Getting up with him, I couldn't put him back to sleep. All of that. So really, by me trying to help out and be that role model, or that within that role I wanted to be in, was only creating more tension within the relationship itself. And that was quite destroying to me at that moment. We quickly found this equilibrium of where things sat emotionally stable at moments. But we were essentially two ships passing in the night, where we spent our lives creating this relationship where we were able to lean on each other. It was no longer there because all of that effort was being put into this kid. So mentally, I took this point and I said, I'm in the business of raising children. That's it. My wife is my business partner. No longer that relationship aspect anymore. I am simply in the business of raising kids. And that destroyed me in a lot of different ways. Failure, it just hovered in the background. And then to amplify it, like I come from a family where I've got brothers and sisters, her as well. 2 years later, we had another one. And believing that this was going to be a situation, when you talk to people like, oh, it's a beautiful moment, everyone needs a sibling, the whole 9 yards. We have this other kid, and it's not twice as difficult. It's literally a logarithmic equation where it's 4,000 times as difficult, especially when I was already in that headspace. And now I'm pushing that vulnerability that I'm feeling back into the relationship, into my parenting and everything else, and I'm struggling. Probably the worst thing for me happened at that time. We had a financial crash within the oil and gas industry, and I had to go back out to the field. And really, I wasn't home for 11 months. So I had literally a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at the house, and I wasn't there. And I felt like I was not a good husband. I was a terrible parent to the kids, and I wasn't living up to the livelihood that I wanted to. And in some ways, I really thought I was able to control all of this much more than anything else in my life. And I was completely letting down the people that I loved the most by being a failure as a parent in my mind. And I was vocal about this in a lot of ways. And after 11 months, I was able to find work back in town, and I took that opportunity, and I went back into the relationship and did the best things I could. I was the provider. I was the handbag. I picked things up, but really, I didn't feel like I was adding value to my relationship or to my kids. And the biggest thing for me is many years later, I had an aha moment when I was able to see that hard work come through the eyes of my children, within their actions, within their moral choices, and everything else. And it was beautiful in the sense that my 6 or 8-year-old at that time would say or do something that was purely an action or a personality trait, or something that was so rather myself or my wife, where I had a tendency to fall in love with my kids. Because for a while there, and I hate to say it, but it was like I loved my kids out of the maternal aspect or paternal aspect. But in some ways, I wasn't in love with them because I felt failure as a parent. So for those of you out there who are currently going through this moment, please know there is some light at the end of the tunnel. It takes years. It took me years to recognize this, to understand this, that I wasn't just a royal piece of that even though I was drowning within this vulnerability, I did everything I could to ensure that my kids didn't see it. And I don't know if that was the right choice, but now that we're coming out the other side, and I can really see who they are and blossoming from all of that work that my wife and I weren't putting into each other, but into them, it's now giving back to us tenfold, and making for a beautiful relationship all the way around. So that's my story, and hopefully it sheds some light out there for anybody else out there that being a new dad is difficult. In some ways, it's not fulfilling. 99.9% of the time, I used to tell people it was in some ways the worst part of my life. But that glimmer of 0.01% kept me in and kept me pushing, and I think lean on that and know that things do get better. But yeah, thanks for the time. I hope this helps. And once again, I just wanted to do a quick shout out and thank Fabian and the MenzLeague team for putting this out. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.